Hey everyone, my name is Stars and welcome to the final part of our Roomy Pack series. This will be a shorter episode where I address some advice that I gave that may change for Interloper or Misery, and what things you should also try to think about. I'm going to go through each episode of the series one at a time and review what advice changes with each episode. Due to the nature of Interloper and Misery, you can justify over-preparing much more in these difficulties, since at any time, a lethal blizzard could swoop in or a wolf struggle could go wrong, spelling doom for your survivor. So with that known, let's hop into it. Part 1. Travel Foods. All of my advice from this video still stands in my eyes, even in these difficulties. However, you may want to think about hydration a little bit more. I didn't mention hydration values of food because you can always make water on the go, or eat dehydrating food when you already are at 0% hydration to negate any water loss. In Interloper and Misery, it's far more likely that you won't have the luxury of being able to create a lot of fires. So, if you are bringing a lot of dehydrating foods, try to either eat them when you're at 0% hydration, or pack some extra water, while making more water whenever you have a fire active. Part 2. Tools. We have the most to go over here. Let's start with torches. Everything I said about torches in the regards to lighting still stands, but there is an incredibly useful method of fire starting that you should be employing when you play on tougher difficulties, where each and every match is far more valuable. You can use a lit torch to start a fire, and even if that fire starting attempt fails, the torch will stay lit. So you can keep trying to start a fire with that lit torch without wasting another match for each fire starting attempt. This method is useful in all game modes, but I personally find it to be unnecessary unless you're playing in Interloper or Misery, due to the ridiculous quantity of matches that you'll find in Stalker and below. In that same vein of conserving matches, let's talk about the magnifying lens. For Interloper and Misery, always carry your mag lens, and use it whenever you can, because for each fire you start with a mag lens, you save a match that could save your survivor's life down the line. Now let's talk about the hacksaw and the hatchet. Before, when we discussed these, I explained that you should almost never bring both, and the hacksaw should only be brought over the hatchet when you plan on harvesting scrap metal. For Interloper and Misery, I want to propose a new perspective, where we instead view the hacksaw as our go-to and the hatchet as more of a self-defense tool that is more optional. As we talked about before, the hacksaw can do almost everything that the hatchet can, with the exception of breaking down bushes in areas like Hush River Valley or Blake Inlet. All you need to repair the hacksaw is simple or quality tools and scrap metal, with the tools themselves being able to be repaired with scrap metal as well. So due to the abundance of scrap metal across Great Bear, it essentially makes the hacksaw a nearly infinitely repairable tool. But that changes when we look at the hatchet. You need a whetstone to repair the hatchet, which is far more valuable of a resource than scrap metal, and is better saved for repairing your knives whenever you can. So if the hacksaw does almost everything that the hatchet does, and is far more repairable in the long term, then why would we ever need to bring a hatchet besides breaking down bushes? Self-defense. In Interloper and Misery, you won't find any hatchets or knives, and you have to make your own, with the regular hatchet and hunting knife never existing in your worlds. You cannot use a hacksaw in a struggle, so among our options, the improvised hatchet is the tool that will do the most damage in a struggle until you make a cougar knife. So if you lack defensive gear and worry about a wolf struggle ending your run, you can easily justify taking an improvised hatchet along with your hacksaw and knife to save you in a struggle. Part 3. Medicine, firewood, and crafting materials. The first thing I want to point out here is once again a method of preserving your matches. If you don't have a torch to use to help start fires, try to bring a book or two with you. They are very heavy, weighing 0.5 kilograms each, but will almost always result in a successful fire if you're going to use them as your initial fuel, saving you from wasting a couple matches trying to get a fire going. The second thing we'll talk about is bringing at least 5 cloth with you when you are traveling through regions of Great Bear that don't have a lot of shelter, such as Forlorn Muskeg. The reason for this is that you need 5 cloth to make a snow shelter, which is a very warm emergency shelter that you can craft with 5 cloth and 15 sticks if you get stuck out in a blizzard and need to hunker down but have no other means of escaping the cold. I have been saved many times in my Interloper runs by having the materials I need to create a snow shelter on my survivor. So if you're traveling through more barren regions of Great Bear, then bring a minimum of 5 cloth with you and collect sticks as you go if you can, just in case you need to make a snow shelter. Part 4. Recipes. This is the only part of our series that isn't really affected by difficulty. No matter how you slice it, I believe that the recipes I highlighted in this video are the best options for travel if you have the luxury of being able to make them. Finally, Part 5. Weapons. There are a couple things to mention here. First off, not only do no firearms other than the distress pistol spawn in Interloper or Misery, but none of the bow variants will spawn either, making the only variant you can get being the bushcraft bow by getting the recipe from the trader. Next, I want to mention something that was brought to my attention by a couple comments that I didn't know about. The distress pistol has a very long reload time, as I mentioned, but if you hit reload right after firing a flare, your survivor will reload immediately, cutting down on around 1 second of reload time. And finally, I want to specify the best habits for hunting small game, as the efficiency there could be life-saving for your survivor. For rabbits, try to use stones to save on arrow and bow durability, but for ptarmigans, use arrows, opting for fire-hardened arrows to save your better arrows for more extreme circumstances. The reason for this is that if you scare a ptarmigan, the whole flock will fly away and sometimes take up to days to return. But if you use an arrow, ptarmigans will rarely get scared, and if they do, it'll only be the ones that are extremely close to a missed arrow. This will allow you to possibly kill the entire flock, giving you a huge influx of ptarmigan down and meat, and could be the difference between life or death. And that's it, guys. It feels kind of bittersweet bringing this series to a close. I started my channel with it, and you all helped me blow up with it. But I'm excited to be able to move on to other things, and I hope that you will all continue to follow me there. I'm going to continue to focus on The Long Dark for now, but eventually I plan to branch out to covering other games as well. Thank you all so much for being here and for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.